the faithful cannot participate in the masses of the Society of St. Pius X. This is one of the strongest statements uttered in recent days. But is it really true? Because when a statement is truly solid, it stands up to any question. And when it isn't, all it takes is honest questioning for its cracks to show. Let's do this together, calmly. Let's start with the facts. In an interview with EWTN at the end of June, Cardinal Müller spoke about the Society of St. Pius X and the episcopal consecrations scheduled for July 1st. His words were harsh. He called those consecrations a schismatic act. He said that those who perform them act against God's will, and that they are acting not Catholic, but rather anti-Catholic. And he added that the faithful should not and cannot participate in the masses of schismatic priests. Müller is not just any name. He's a conservative theologian, not a progressive. When he speaks of doctrine, he deserves to be listened to with respect. And precisely for this reason, his words deserve to be seriously examined, not dismissed with a joke. And there's a detail that almost everyone has overlooked. In the same interview, Müller was keen to clarify something fundamental. The problem, he says, isn't the traditional Latin Mass, which he recognizes as fully valid. The problem for him is authority and obedience to the Pope. Let's keep this distinction in mind, because it's the key to everything. And now, let's begin to question that warning. Pay attention to this detail. Question number 1. If the old Mass is valid, as Müller himself admits, then what is the real problem? The Mass or discipline? The answer is clear. The problem, in its very logic, is not the rite. It is the canonical question of obedience. But then, telling the faithful you can't go to that Mass risks confusing two very different levels: the validity of the sacrament and the canonical regularity of the minister. A believer who attends that Mass receives a valid sacrament before an altar where Christ's sacrifice is truly renewed. The crux of the matter is not what happens on the altar, but the priest's position in relation to Rome. These are two distinct things and must be kept distinct. What we see is only the surface. Question number 2, even more uncomfortable. If it really is a schism, why has the Vatican never officially used that word? This is a fact, not an opinion. Throughout this entire affair, the Holy See has spoken of a schismatic act related to the consecrations, but has never formally declared the Society of St. Pius X schismatic as a body. The word that Müller uses so confidently, Rome has always avoided. And this isn't a quibble, because if the society were simply outside the Church, the matter would have already been said and shelved decades ago. Instead, the reality is much more nuanced. Priests who profess the creed in its entirety, who administer valid sacraments in an irregular but not heretical canonical position. Question number 3, and here we question Müller himself, confronting him with his own words. Because, a few days earlier, at the consistory, the Cardinal had said something else. He had proposed preparing a response to the society, and above all, he had predicted that after the consecrations, many priests attached to tradition would seek full communion with Rome. He had even suggested welcoming them back with a structure similar to the Ecclesia Dei desired by John Paul II in 1988. Here lies the paradox that no one wants to name. On the one hand, the faithful are told, "They're schismatics, don't go there." On the other, the leaders are told, "Let's prepare to welcome them back." But you can't simultaneously treat someone as forever separated and plan their return home. Either they're an enemy or they're a brother to be reunited. The two don't work together. And this brings us to the most surprising part of the whole story. Because while the cardinals are discussing the schism, outside, in the real world, something is happening that completely upends the perspective. Consider what Bishop James Conley of Lincoln, United States said recently. He's not a Lefebvrean. He's a fully regular bishop who celebrates the new rite 95% of the time. Conley observes something incredible. There's a resurgence of interest in all things traditional, especially among young people. They want reverence. They want transcendence. They want beauty in the liturgy. Question number 4. If the ancient Mass were truly a relic of the past, a nostalgia for the elderly, why do young people seek it out? Why would a boy from 2026 fall in love with a ritual that had been described to him as dead and buried? Conley himself provides the answer. Because in that rite, young people find what they no longer find elsewhere: a sense of the sacred, silence, adoration, the sense of truly being before God, and not an assembly that speaks only of itself. And it's not just an internal church issue, it's even reached the secular press. Il Giornale, a major Italian newspaper, featured the Latin Mass on its front page. The editor, Tommaso Cerno, titled his editorial, "Why the Future Speaks Latin." Let's dwell on that headline, because it's sensational. Not a Catholic newspaper, but a secular one, goes so far as to say that Latin tradition is not the past, it is the future. Exactly the opposite of what we've been told for 60 years. And here comes the uncomfortable question. If tradition were truly finished, outdated, condemned by history, why does it continue to grow? Why does it attract young people? Why does it even win over non-Catholics? Dead things do not sprout, yet this one sprouts before our eyes. Here, then, is the complete picture. On the one hand, a cardinal's solemn warning: don't go, they are schismatics. On the other, the facts: a Mass he himself recognizes as valid, a word, schism, that Rome has never officially uttered, a return already taken into account, and a rebirth that begins precisely with the youngest. The facts, in short, say something different from the warning. They don't say the society is right about everything. The issue of obedience to the Pope remains real and serious, and it would be dishonest to ignore it. On that point, Müller raises a genuine question. But they say that the hasty dismissal, "Schismatics, stay away," doesn't stand up to the test of questioning. Because what attracts souls isn't rebellion, it's the sacred. It's the same Mass as always, the one that even Müller defends as valid. And this is precisely the point that should make pastors reflect. If the faithful, especially the young, seek reverence elsewhere, perhaps the question to ask is not just why do they go there, but also why do they no longer find it where they should find it? We're closing the loop. We started with a warning. The faithful cannot attend fraternity masses. We interrogated him with 4 honest questions. And what emerged was a picture far more complex than a slogan. Perhaps the real lesson is this: the unity of the Church is not defended by frightening the faithful, but by offering them what they truly seek, that is God, worshipped with reverence and beauty. If you want to help us defend and spread this content, the most effective way is to subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for your support. What do you think? If you liked the video, comment Amen. God bless you.